So it's official, Iran is now stockpiled more enriched uranium in their country than they were originally permitted to under the Iran nuclear deal. Apparently, what was agreed to between the Obama administration and the Iranian government is that the Iranian government would not keep more than 300 kilograms of enriched uranium within the country at any time. Excess uranium, I guess, was supposed to be shipped out of the country or just used up before they reached that 300 kilogram level. And because of all the conflict and stuff with Trump, they're trying to look tough, so they decided, hey, we're going to make more than 300 kilograms of uranium because the U.S. clearly is no longer in the deal. So what do we care about what the deal says? That's very interesting. I had to do some reading to figure out exactly what this level meant. And I assumed that this, stockpile limit had something to do with actually making a nuclear weapon, and that if Iran breached this level, then they would somehow be one step closer towards making a nuclear weapon. After reading some, it doesn't seem that that's the case at all. This stockpile limit seems fairly arbitrary, and it doesn't seem to put them any closer to building a nuclear weapon. The reason for this is that the reason why Iran currently can't build a nuclear weapon is not so much because they don't have enough enriched uranium, it's because they don't have the correct grade of enriched uranium. They don't really have weapons-grade enriched uranium. The kind of uranium enrichment program that they have going on is only producing very low enriched uranium. It's about 3.6%, I believe, is the level that they're targeting. And that's far too low for any sort of bomb to actually be made. Now, apparently, according to Jason Ditz of antiwar.com, you need something along the lines of a 90% enriched uranium if you're going to actually build a bomb. And of course, building a nuclear weapon doesn't take that much uranium, I don't believe. I mean, that's the whole point of a nuclear weapon, is that it's very unstable, and that, you have this big chemical reaction, or, well, not a chemical reaction, nuclear reaction, because you've got this radioactive element in there that creates a giant explosion. So the quantity was never the issue here. So I don't understand. Maybe they're saying that, I guess, if you hold on to all this uranium, maybe perhaps down the road they could somehow make it into weapons-grade uranium, but I don't see how they couldn't do that with holding on to, whatever stockpile they had before. If you can, somehow modify uranium after it's been enriched. And again, I'm not a nuclear physicist, that might be impossible, but I'm just trying to be the devil's advocate here on behalf of the U.S., because they don't seem to have a very good case against Iran at the moment. Now, of course, I believe there's still IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors in Iran, because this is such a closely monitored and under the microscope program. I think that we would have a lot of notice if the Iranians were to up their enrichment level to 90% or something close to what they would need to make a nuclear weapon. Currently, if they're doing such low enrichment, there's really nothing to worry about. You can't do anything with that, as far, from what I understand. And again, I'm not a nuclear physicist, but I'm sure if it were possible for the Iranians to take the uranium that they have at that enrichment level and build a bomb, the U.S. would never tolerate that. Now, going back then to this cap on the amount of stockpiled enriched uranium that they're supposed to hang on to, the U.S. Is putting out a lot of statements condemning this and saying, oh, Iran, they're clearly showing that they have no integrity, and that they're always violating the deal, and that they're just no good, very bad people, and they should go back to their limits immediately. And the U.S., coming from the U.S., that case doesn't hold much water, because the U.S. already pulled out of the deal. Now, of course, officially, the deal was never really in place in the U.S. because it was never ratified as a treaty. It was just sort of an agreement between the president and another country. Of course, when it comes to foreign policy, U.S. presidents have near dictatorial powers. I mean, presidents can go off and start wars all they want without congressional approval. That's been going on for quite some time. So, of course, while the deal negotiated by Obama may not have had much staying power since it was not ratified as a treaty in the Senate, Trump very well could have continued the deal if he wanted to, if he really wanted the Iranians to stick to this 300-kilogram enrichment level. But instead he pulled out and he promised to get us a better deal, and he hasn't started any negotiations with the Iranians to get a better deal. So the Iranians said, screw the old deal. If nobody's paying attention to it anymore, why should we? I mean, this can't be shocking to anybody. Now, interestingly enough, Lindsey Graham, who has always been, I guess, I don't know if you'd call him a neocon. I don't know if he's that ideological, but he's certainly one of the most hawkish men in the Senate. He was, always right up there with John McCain. And now that John McCain's gone, I think he seems like a bit of a different person, but I think he still certainly has his very, very hawkish attitude when it comes to the Middle East. And of course, he's out there making the case on the behalf of the Israeli government, saying that Israel will not tolerate Iran having a nuclear weapon. It is strange to hear a U.S. senator speaking on behalf of the Israeli government like that, as if he were a direct spokesperson, but that's just kind of the world we live in. Now, Netanyahu really has been on this whole anti-Iran nuke deal, or not even long before the deal. He was against Iran doing anything with nuclear power for decades now. I mean, he's pretty much been trumpeting this message for my entire lifetime. He's been saying for years and years and years that Iran is on the brink of nuclear breakout and that they could have a bomb within 90 days. He's been saying that for my whole life. And of course, with this news coming out, Bibi's saying that, again. And you know what? Fool me once, shame on you. But fool me twice, thrice, and however many other times he's fooled the public and told everyone that Iran is on the brink of having a nuclear weapon and they're going to blow up Israel. I just don't believe you anymore, Bibi. I'm sorry. Apparently, though, I guess some people think that Netanyahu does really believe that this threat is real, and he is as concerned about it as he acts. And one guy, an OSINT account on Twitter that I would recommend everybody follow. He's very hawkish, but he puts out good information. His handle is Endgame World War III, which of course is a very hyperbolic handle, but I call myself a sultan. I'm not really a sultan. He has World War III in his handle. I don't think he's necessarily forecasting that World War III is imminent. But anyway, he is making the case now that he thinks that the way things are shaping up, Trump is not going to start a war with Iran. He doesn't want to do that. But the Israelis may very well drag him into one. The Israelis may decide to bomb Iran's nuclear facilities now that they've exceeded this stockpile cap and use that as sort of a justification for it. And of course, if the Israelis strike Iran when tensions are so high like this, the Iranians are going to have to hit back at Israel just to save face. It's one thing if they get hit by the U.S. and they don't strike back. The U.S. is big and powerful, but Israel, they've always called Israel Little Satan, so they should be able to punch back at Israel if Israel hits them. And of course, if they hit back at Israel, then Trump is going to have to get into a war with Iran on behalf of defending Israel. I think that that's a pretty reasonable scenario, not reasonable as in good and should happen, but reasonable as in that's possible. I'm not convinced myself. I don't think necessarily that the Israelis would do something that disastrous, because I don't think Bibi wants Israel to be blown off the face of the map by Iranian missiles, because even if Iran doesn't have nukes right now, they do have missiles that can hit Israel that are conventional. And Israel's a small country, so you pound Israel with a bunch of conventional missiles, you could kill many millions of people. I mean, I think the population of Israel is only something like 5 million, so maybe you wouldn't kill millions and millions, but you would certainly kill a significant portion of the Israeli population, because there's just not that much space that you have to blow up. They probably don't want to hit Jerusalem, but they could at least level Tel Aviv. And of course, Hezbollah would invade from the north to assist and essentially be Iran's ground troops in Israel. So I really think that if Bibi were to attack Iran when the U.S. is not poised to jump right out and attack immediately after to defend Israel, well, then that would be suicidal. But then again, Israel has bombed Iranian nuke sites before, and they've done that independent of the U.S., at least nominally. Perhaps I'm sure they told the U.S. about it, behind closed doors. And perhaps they could get away with something like that again, because they could certainly run it by U.S. officials without it getting all the way up to the president. So I think we should keep an eye on that and see what Bibi Netanyahu does next, because I think really the ball is in the U.S. and Israel's court now. It'll be interesting to see how everyone reacts. I think Trump is going to continue to play it dovish, which I'm happy about. Again, the war with Iran would be disastrous for the United States. Sure, they could beat the Iranian government eventually, but like in Iraq, you'll never actually win the war. And so with that said, if you gained anything of value out of this video, I'd appreciate you clicking that like button and subscribing. And if you do subscribe, please do click the bell, because I do upload every day, and I'd hate to have you miss one. So I'll see you folks back here tomorrow.